corrections and institutions. We're continuing our line by line of our draft 3.1 of the capital bill. This is Friday, March 21st. So we left off on page 7, and we left off on the conversation of whether or not we should combine the building community grants of human services and education. And Commissioner BTS is going to kind of look back and just see if there's more requests for education than human services or human services versus education. They were split because it was really hard to, we really want to get a handle on what was coming in for education ones. And we split this up, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, we split it up. And the commissioner would like flexibility between these two, move them. So did you kind of find anything, Wanda?
So for the record, Wanda Minoli, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. Clearly, there's an indication that you get more requests. We get more requests for the human service grant. And just to give you an example, so I'd say it's about 40%, 45%. The last grant cycle, there was 419,000 in human service and 234,000 roughly in educational grants. So one of the things in looking at the language, you could consider, so remember you have a committee. In statute, you created a committee who oversees this grant, and it represents both sides, educational, human services. The committee having the ability when they rank based on the criteria to be able to give the money to maybe the higher priority projects or the projects that are ready to go could be beneficial. So one thought is to maybe if you consolidated it, you could make a statement that it's the intent that funded be divided between these programs, but to the extent possible, something to that you could be a little bit more, to give the committee a little bit of flexibility that if they want to spend 10,000 more on human services or education, they could.
Oh, problem with that. But maybe also you could consider, maybe this wouldn't work, that if one of the two programs were undersubscribed, that it may be used for the other program, which is very similar to what you're saying.
Language for that.
We're absolutely
It's
saying
language.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what he's saying.
You gotta have the language for it.
yes.
So, Wanda, would it be combining like we used to, human services and education?
Right.
We combined them,
You could put the 300,000 and give them the ability.
ability to move the money between the two.
Right, and you could state if you want it to try to keep it divided, that's your intent, but to give them the flexibility to allocate appropriately where they may spend more in one. And let me just give the committee an example, just really quickly. I can add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 13 grants submitted for educational program last year. All of them got funded but one because it came to the money. Where there were over 25, there were almost 30 grants under human services. So they had to take that 150
And squeeze it in.
and squeeze it
So
in.
if you had 300 for human services and education, well, one grant,
Like it used to be.
like it used to be, they had 300,000 to divvy up between those two requests. How would that play out? You're saying you should put in language.
I think you could consider language that emphasized your intent, that we try to divide as equally, or whatever, that we have the ability, the goal is to try to divide, but the committee has the ability to assign to the extent to
Priority
assign
to the
where
extent.
where you have more of a project that's ready to go.
So Wanda, Commissioner, so
Representative.
education, you said had all but one of their grants was given, and you said that was due to reaching the max for the money?
Pretty much, that's how it looks. I
So-
wasn't there, sir, because it was so specific, you have 150,000 to spend.
Right, and so, and human services used all their money as well.
Well, human services had
We have more than-
440,000 and
So-
they spent the 150.
Right, so in my next part, so is the intent. So it was fully utilized, is my point. So if we combine them, it's not like the education was only putting out 100 and was 50 left on the table. I have no problem with combining them, but my question when we first started this was, is one underutilized compared to the other? But if they're both fully utilized, then there's, not really an issue. But having said that, I really have no problem with putting them together and add a language, and Joe offered the similar kind of language to combine them and give that authorization to be able to share between the pots.
I don't, I want to be able for all of the grant money to go out. And because it's so specific to 150 each,
Mhm.
if one of the programs comes in at under 150, then we don't have the committee doesn't have the flexibility to give it to the other.
That's why I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just, so it's not, I don't have a preference on how you do it. I just think you should give the committee that
I gotcha.
ability.
John, bring you up to speed what we're doing. We're
I
doing,
think I know where you're at, yeah.
well,
I'm not quite sure where we're at.
you do, but you don't.
Yep.
In that, we started this morning, and we're really doing a line by line, reading everything. And we're only on page 7. So we do have some language changes. I don't know if Scott has kept.
Scott.
I mean, you know what we're doing, but what we've spent time doing here. We have them in the hot seat. I'm going, so why don't you come up, because changing language as we go along. But also we're spending the time now doing the actual quietly reading and the line by line. Because the next draft we get, we're not gonna have to spend the time doing it line by line because we've already done it. I really want to spend the time now to understand the words, understand it. So where are we as a committee on the building community grants? Do we want to keep the human services and education one divided, where they each get 150? Or do we want to combine them with intent language that of the 300,000, they would be as equally divided between the two as possible?
Combine them.
I agree with Mary.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, so combine them.
With the tip.
And then intent language that the grants would be, it would be equally divided as reasonably possible, something to that effect.
Scott's got his hand up.
Oh, Scott, I'm sorry, I didn't see
Good
you.
afternoon, Madam Chair. Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office. For the spreadsheet, do you want me to put those two together on the spreadsheet as well?
Yes.
Version 6.
Yeah.
Still working five, still working five.
Okay.
And the other thing I'm having Scott do on the next line of spreadsheets, the line numbers on the left-hand side will also have the line numbers on the right-hand side,
Oh, nice.
because that will make it easier. We've done that in the past. That makes it easier to see.
They'll all be in Roman numerals.
Yes. So let's finish up
Okay.
page 7 and let's quietly read the rest. And then top of page 8, this is FY 27. It should track what we've all done. So that one should be fairly easy.
Where, Sean?
And then
Oh, it's the same thing.
Just gonna announce myself for the record, John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel. Keep reading. Thank you.
So I'll set the language on 5 and 6 and what we just talked about.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we're combining them. Yep. Then we got those.
So then we're on page 9 now? Is that-
Page 9, the vet's home. So let's make sure the numbers are right and read the words to understand it. Oh, not that's home, it's the end. I'm sorry. It's that song. Sorry.
Work with you, so.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I looked too far. I'm going nuts here. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
On 16, there's a comma after renovations. We decided we went with the Oxford comma on most stuff.
Sorry, line 16 on 9 or?
On 9, yeah. Right after renovations.
Mhm. Looking at the.
Page 9, what line?
Page 9,
Line what?
16.
So page what?
Is it?
Yeah, 'cause page 9, line 16.
I think we're in different drafts.
Sorry, the wrong one.
We're on draft 3.1.
The rest of us are.
No, you got it.
If I have to. We're in the same place. I think she was just.
Yeah, I had the wrong
But
one.
I'm sure your
But no,
comment is still this.
No, it's not. You got it in this draft.
Good. I like that.
Thank you for the
Only
information.
all,
There were a couple others in the beginning, but the biggie.
yes, Scott spoke to me about it. I will come through and. see
I
if
don't
can
like
just-
the Oxford comma personally, but for consistency's sake, we decided to go with it.
I will just say we use the Oxford comma in the Green Book, so it is, yeah.
Oh, that's the way it goes.
I'm just making sure our intent, when we made it 1.05 million, that it, I know it says A1 through A2, and that's what that means, right?
What it means,
Yeah.
what B means is that 710,000 for the air handlers, 340,000 for the laundry. They can move money between those two items.
Okay. That.
Yeah.
That's what B
Okay.
means.
Yeah, it's easy.
Okay? Anything on the vet's home? Good to go?
That one looks good to me.
Where is the language for a wing?
15 and 16.
That's cash.
Cash. So the language for that renovation is in the cash. So
Yep, and we have the reallocation section as well, which speaks to the B and C.
UCAM is good.
UVM,
And can I just pause to frame something based on Scott's comments to me? The way that I drafted this was not to take the governor recommended language and send it to drafting ops to have it edited in our format. The way that I did it is I took old capital bills, the way that we reference projects, and then I slotted in and tried to update as appropriate the governor's recommended language. So if you've seen things that diverge from that initial line item, I've just tried to conform to the way that they've been referenced in previous capital bills. So if you had questions about that, that is why.
we did do a few adjustments in the BGS section. Scott, did you get those?
The statewide planning reuse.
There was, and was there
I think
any
it was corrections, AHS.
corrections? There was something in AHS.
Reuse, that was one. Yeah,
There was,
Mhm.
there was on page 4.
Four.
For the statewide, it's on line
Oh, yes,
9 and
yeah.
20. That the money needs to go to DOC instead of BGS.
Oh,
Those
okay.
two items, that's what the,
Which two, sorry?
on line 9,
Uh-huh.
that's the statewide safety and security upgrades, and line 20, statewide security.
Okay, so we're gonna need a separate,
Yeah, because the others all are appropriated to BGS for DOC or for the agency. So would this go to the agency or
It goes, and I think if you look at the governor's budget as presented, we had that separated out.
okay.
Because the agency does do those quick security. Like some of the examples that are in it, it talks about beds and some other items. It gives it gives the Department of Corrections the flexibility to make those quick enhancements.
So just to clarify for my own purposes, this is going to BGS, not to the agency human services?
No, we propose that the security,
Not BGS, I mean corrections.
that it go to corrections to, do
Okay.
those, the,
Okay.
upgrades quickly.
Yep.
So, I will need a new section if we're not hearing.
We have another draft coming.
I think
They
we,
can make it
I
work.
think before writing, we have a section A for BGS and then the items appropriated in section 3, a B to, correction.
It wouldn't be a new type, wouldn't be a new header. It'd still be under human services.
Correct.
Oh, you would like it there? Okay, I'm just making, just because when I look at the section headers, I think of them as getting the ultimate entity that this flows through to. It's fine if you would like to take that approach. You just then have the divergence of, you have a section header that doesn't say, I mean, it could say Human Services, semicolon, Department of Corrections, if that is clearer for the,
Whatever way it is, we want to make sure the money goes to DOC.
yes, it's easy to do that. I just,
That's the key, right, Commissioner?
For that particular, item, and again, I think we try to address what we're trying to do in the governor's budget proposal, and maybe you could just look at that and it might
yeah,
help you
and I may,
figure out how you want to do it.
and I can look at past capital bills and see if we had like a, yeah.
Sounds good.
So while we're kind of back on page 4,
Uh-oh.
let me flip to page 5. Wanda, did you find anything about if the Agency of Human Services did that funding request for the feds? You were gonna connect.
So we didn't, we're trying to confirm if they actually requested the money, but if I could to the members of the committee, on page 5, section C, this language is clear to us. And, we went back and we looked at it. So essentially by giving us the notwithstanding on line 7, you're giving us the flexibility between the roof replacement project and the, intake,
Booking.
the booking, that there's a total of about $3.5 million. And with this language, you are giving us the ability to move the money as needed between those two projects.
That's our goal.
Without being restricted by waiting to hear if we get the federal
Yep.
dollars.
Mhm.
So that works for us. That's how we're interpreting it.
Mhm.
And I have a clear understanding now that I went back and read it and had 3 other people read it. To make sure we were understanding it.
So we don't know at this point if the request was made or not.
We're still, I think with Nick being out, we've put a inquiry out. But what you're doing is you're allowing us to advance the project
Yeah.
without that
Mhm.
request occurring.
But you
And to use the
also,
money between the two projects.
right, but also there's part of that section 27B that you have to abide by for the book.
Well, I think, Madam Chair, you actually amended that in 24 and those specific items, and you can have John confirm this for you. You amended 23 and 24, which didn't have those specific projects. It went right to the booking area.
Okay.
Is that?
I'll look, yeah, that's easy enough.
But I think getting clarity on that would be helpful.
Really helpful. I don't. Where did you, are you saying we did that in last year's capital bill?
Get adjustment.
Must have been in the
Speak to
language.
that here.
Was it in the language?
I can pull it up.
So,
We changed the money to 2.6 from 2.5.
I think that's a great point. I mean,
I don't think we did.
I'm, So I'm looking at it in 23, you have all of the language.
Right,
Then when I go to 24, you specifically list in section 3.
right. But
And you refer that to the Northwest Correctional Facility booking, expansion, planning, design and construction. So that's how we were interpreting the language.
we didn't, right, but we didn't change the language that tracked with that. We
We
only,
have,
I mean, we had the money, we changed the money. But we didn't change the language.
So I think it's fair to say, because in the booking expansion design project, you want us to look at the HVAC, improve the employee amenities, use renewable energy, and use evidence-based principles
Right.
for wellness environments.
Right.
I don't think that's an issue. To me, that's the part of the design.
Right.
that we embed that.
And the committee at that point was pretty clear about that, wanting it.
So, I mean, I can commit that we will measure and look at those.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So let me get my right year draft.
Speak up. Version 4.
What page? There we are.
10.
10.
Scott's keeping us in the dark. Version 5.
More changes.
Did we hear back from Sharon Scott on this? at all?
did not, we did not. That's why you see no reference to, I had bracketed language before. But we didn't hear back, so I've just left it at the general heating plant. That's what.
Okay. Well, we're just reading line by line by line by line. And you're gonna be pretty much on your own because your boss is a little busy. Yeah. He was a surprise, no, good.
Bit early, I think.
Came as a surprise to everybody. Hope everything's okay. Yeah, anything on state colleges? Go ahead.
Do we need to specify on line 67 of the replacements at the Johnson Central Heating?
Yeah, it will be in the
Okay.
new, it'll be in the new one.
I see.
I hope it's in the new one, should be.
All right.
We're on page 11 now.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, God. Go, guys. This is the fun part. So if you notice, folks, for FY 26, if you look on your spreadsheet, the drinking water supply, drinking water revolving loan fund, we don't have any money in the drinking water revolving loan fund for bonded dollars in FY 26.
Mhm.
So therefore, it is not listed.
On the line 7.
So actually, Department of Forest Parks and Recreation doesn't include an Oxford comma. So when an agency or department has a specified title, we follow the way that they reference their.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to change that. That's their title. I would love to, but.
Well, then let's go to line 9, because there's one there too.
That sounds great. That sounds good. These updates I like. I will say some previous capital bills don't use the Oxford comma, which confused me, and I think that's why we have to read through.
It depended who was on the committee that paid attention.
Could you write that on the board?
Because it was Tom Koch that always had commas.
He's my editor.
Yeah, he was a stickler. And then when we lost him, we didn't have anybody dealing with.
May I actually ask a question about that line, since we're thinking about.
Which line now?
We're talking about subdivision 1 on line 9.
Okay.
Park infrastructure rehabilitation improvement and 3-acre rule compliance. Improvements specific to park infrastructure or all three of the, is rehabilitation improvement and 3-acre rule compliance all about park infrastructure is my question. Because if it's park infrastructure, rehabilitation and improvement and 3-acre rule compliance, just my framing makes sense. I don't
The
want to.
way it's on the spreadsheet, it has park, infrastructure, rehab and improvement, comma.
So, okay.
Yep.
So to me, that if
Yeah,
the
it's
improvement
fine.
is specific to, I would do an and and an and.
Yeah,
which looks
because
funny, but-
it's both, and some parks, they're doing rehab and some is just minor improvements.
Yep.
And the 3-acre compliance is something totally different.
Yep, I think and is the
Yep.
answer.
Sounds good.
So you'd have to do that in both years, right? Yeah.
Good deal on line 4 on page 12.
Thank you.
Then line 15 for folks is where FY 27 kicks in, and that's where you're gonna see bonded dollars for the state match for the drinking water revolving loan fund.
Mhm.
And that draws down, for every dollar we put in, that draws down $5. And we had Gina and Will and James looking at this,
Mhm.
and these numbers track,
Yep.
these dollar amounts track.
Spreadsheet.
Yep.
And then dam safety, another $500,000, and the dams group.
Yep.
It was all
We're doing good, Joe.
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
I know the Forest and Parks folks, all right,
Yep.
all of that. Okay, anything from page 12, the Fish and Wildlife, at the end of Fish and Wildlife, anything there?
No,
See.
Okay, clean water, here we go. This is all recommended by the Clean Water Fund Board, but doesn't mean we have to keep it. So again, first one, the 3 million is to the Agency of Agriculture for water quality grants. And Kevin, Mary, and Sean, what did you find out for them? Did you hear anything back? We were still waiting for them. Like last year.
Yeah. Mary, who did get back to us?
As we were waiting for. And 3 million. Right? 3 million. You were waiting for more information to come back from them, right? Yeah. Did they get back to you this week?
You want to circle that part, come back to it?
Well,
We don't have-
Sean's looking. My,
I think so.
Wait a minute.
There was something that came back, water quality grants from Nicole Dubay.
Right. Nicole Dubuque.
Pleased to see the attached memo, okay. Yes,
So when
just,
did that come back? What day?
it came back on March 19th.
There was zero movement on any of those numbers. We had the 115,000. We had asked them about this 1,992,000. They have spent $667 of it.
It's the same thing as last year. Same thing as last year. So is this the new one that you got?
This is the updated one from,
So what year monies are they using?
well,
Did you also have to find out?
well, they,
They retain the funds previously. Well, they want to retain the funds.
yes, they do.
But that's not what. They're thinking it's repo. That's what they're thinking. That was something recent. Encumbered. So they have a lot encumbered.
Yes. Most of it's encumbered.
That's the.
And they did, I mean, they were pretty, the woman who was speaking for them was pretty specific that they've spent, most of it's been.
I gotta look at what you're looking.
Yeah, Premier, this is the new,
Cause I'm not,
I was looking at the.
that is,
and that was always what they were giving us back
Yeah, because
anyway.
we were looking at the fiscal year and they said by
Right.
the end of, by
So
June of
this
this
is
year, they have
their,
it.
so which, this is their fiscal year or calendar year?
No, remember, that's right here, 18, 20,
18, 20,
21, 22,
21.
23, 24.
Fiscal years.
Yes,
Fiscal year. They were saying by the end of June.
it would all be pretty much gone.
and some of it depended upon federal funds coming in, some of these projects.
So knowing briefly what you know right now, it's 3 million that's being requested for them going forward in FY 26. What does the subcommittee think for the 3 million?
I think when we discussed it, I think we said we would give it to them because they have so many asks going forward that they really needed it.
Mhm.
So it's what we
Yeah,
discussed,
they always have more requests than they can fund.
right?
So they go by the priority and they're keeping up with.
So 3 million is okay?
I believe so. They were not asking for
Or
more.
ask for more, but they say that they can always see instead of what they get.
It's pretty, that's the same as what's there.
Well, this is, it's cut back though. And they have 30 to 50 projects every year.
Yeah, but it's the same.
Right, exactly.
It's all encumbered.
That's what I was asking for, because that's all ARPA
ARPA.
money.
It's
Yeah.
ARPA.
And they said at that point they'd spent 120, now they're saying they spent $667.
Oh, okay. So some of it's going out the door, but it's
Right.
encumbered.
Yes.
And they said that there's probably even, like today, there would be an update where even more money's gone out.
Mhm.
That's how fast the projects are moving.
So you're fine with 3 million?
We are.
So then the next one is ANR, and there is 4 million for municipal pollution. And I know we had a group working on that. I don't know if you got into looking at the 4 million for FY 26. I know they're gonna get that out the door.
We got information.
I mean, you had a lot of moving pieces.
Yes.
We did.
Yeah. But we did, hold on.
And how much, do they have much in the bank? They had 11.3 million before this 4 million. They have 11.3 million. And then
The 11.3 is all getting used for municipal work. Municipal pollution.
Well, this is what Eric said about the 4 million, is for municipal, as we know, municipal control pollution. Grants. We awarded to the highest ranking projects for fiscal year 26 priority list whilst, which is still being developed, so we don't know yet which municipalities will receive those monies. But they have all the other ones marked and, from the previous years, and don't think they would have enough money in those previous years,
so what are they gonna do with the 14.8 that's being freed up? That's just for drinking water and wastewater, right?
yeah.
From that,
Yep.
for the IIJA.
Yep, that was on that spreadsheet we talked about yesterday.
There's 14.5 million that's freed up from IIJA, and that's only going towards the drinking water,
Who took my notepad? There it is.
the drinking water revolving loan fund, and the wastewater revolving loan fund, and none of that is going towards municipal pollution. grants, Correct?
That's where we had the 7.4 for fiscal year 26 and 7.1 for fiscal year 27, and how it was divided up by drinking water versus clean water each year. And then that's what we talked about. They had 125 apps already right now for clean water, and they had 83 applications for drinking water. And then they said that will be all gobbled up.
So you're comfortable with the 4 million for the municipal
Yes.
pollution grants?
Yep.
Yeah.
And why did they not have any money needed for the clean water state revolving loan fund for FY 26?
That
Because that's
was,
our 1 to 5 match as well.
that
Like a drink.
was the issue of having leftover money, right? Yeah, that was where they had leftover money because of the benchmark issue at the federal government, so there wasn't as many projects, or excuse me, many grants. Yeah, and so the next year they might need more because the grants have been, the earmark issues changed, and there'll be more money for grants.
So did they get more projects through earmarks so they didn't have to match, or did they get less projects through the
They-
earmarks?
They got less.
Less.
project
They got
than the
less.
partners.
Yeah.
Well, that's why there's no request for this year,
Right,
because they
Yeah.
had some left over from
Yeah.
previous. Okay.
because the wacky stuff with the wackiness.
Okay. So we're good with 3 million for the water quality grants for ag, 4 million for municipal pollution for A&R. And then folks who worked with forests and parks, you indicated the 200,000 for forestry access roads, water quality,
Yes,
it's okay.
yes.
You need any details? I'll have to detail on it. The
Okay.
contract, with budget
That's for roads,
for that, parks and
yeah, the forestry access.
parks, yeah.
Okay, let's go to top page 13.
HCV.
And those ag water quality grants through VHCB, they can draw down a lot more money for those projects, as well as the land conservation and other water quality. It's not so connected with the farming. The ags is connected with the farming.
Looks good.
Read the language on A and B.
Yeah, yep.
Well, I haven't got the B yet.
You don't know what it means. That's what I want to hear. It's the cost share that the farmer has to put in.
Mhm.
We've decreased the cost share.
That's what 6 VSA chapter 215.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
We-
so it's
This
a
is
farmer
boilerplate.
caution.
This is boilerplate that we've had before.
Okay.
But there needs to be a cost share with a farmer, and we've allowed some flexibility there in terms of how the farmer can meet that cost share. So the grant can be used to meet the cost share. Kevin? Question?
I honestly don't understand because I don't have the VSAs, but on page 13, 2A.
Mhm.
I don't know what that, the calculating maximum amount of safe water assistance. Maybe that's boilerplate, but I don't need to know.
I think the thing to say is just, this is the approach that previous capital bills have taken for issuing this grant and the effect. While I don't know the underlying statutes, I can pull them up. I don't think they're going to be especially helpful for resolving this question. It's just saying they factor in state grants in the calculation of those awards. And this is saying ignore this as a state grant for those purposes in the calculation.
And those state grants could be used to satisfy the farmer's cost share
Just,
requirement.
In a scenario, like say the farmer has to buy 10% of the project, the state might be able to subsidize that 10%
To bring it down to 5%.
or whichever.
It's to help the farmer, because in some of these, and we did this about 4 or 5 years ago. We did this to really help the farmer, because sometimes they couldn't come up with enough for the cost share.
Sure.
And we did
Do you
that.
know how much we decreased the cost share?
It depends on
It's just
the project and it depends on the farmer. Where are we here? So this whole piece can, you know what this E means? Make sure people understand it.
Placeholder. Will be figured out once it's figured out.
So next year, in our capital bill in FY 27,
Mhm.
we're tying up $10 million for the clean water section. Okay, hasn't been allocated to what projects? It's just a lump sum. Because the Clean Water Fund Board meets in the fall to determine what projects will be funded out of that 10 million. And they'd only do it year by year. Well,
So is what Troy said correct, that 10 million is a placeholder,
Mhm.
or is it actually what we're estimating?
we have made the commitment, we would put aside 10 million each year of our capital budget to go towards clean water. Doesn't mean it stays there.
Yeah.
But we put it aside.
Okay. And so as Alice was saying, well, so there's 10 million there, and then next, when this board meets, then they're gonna list out projects or whatever, and then next year will come back and kind of work it around,
Okay,
you know, so,
okay.
Because we can, one year we pulled 4 million from that 10. We didn't do the full 10. Okay. Let's go to page 14. Military.
let's see what the language said. It's good.
Anything on that one?
It's
Good. Okay, section 12, line 14.
back again.
This is for the big E. Scott, it might be helpful on the spreadsheet for the big E, just to say renovations.
My hand up to Madam Chair to literally ask her that question. You can rewind on YouTube. My hand was up before she got it. But yeah, do you want me to add renovations? I'll add renovations.
Just to be specific.
And I'm assuming the plant upgrade, there's more to it on the spreadsheet that you have now.
Well, the spreadsheet I have shows BPSU, Randolph and Vermont Agriculture and Environmental Laboratory heat plant upgrade.
And we have language that pertains to this. Money can be moved around
Yes, that's such I can see.
because we put in money
Oh, sorry.
to at the Ag and A&R lab last year. So we wanted to move that money along with this in case, I think, didn't we? Because we had money last year in last year's capital bill. But it would automatically be used, right? Because it's for the same
There was-
project.
There was money that was appropriated for BGS to do the standalone. And I think
Right.
you were trying to ensure that in working part and I don't see any language, but in working in partnership that we could use that previous appropriation to address the needs of the colleges while addressing the needs of the summer heating
Yeah, the
system.
summer heat. So we wanted language to allow that to be used, right?
Okay, so you want transfer between A2 and last year's failed appropriation?
Yeah, we'll find it for you.
Yeah, I can find it. It's good. In fact, I can probably.
I hope it's not cash. That's all I'm hoping.
Because I'd be surprised if we were at this.
I think it is cash. It is cash. That's why I think we wanted to make sure it's over 300,000. Well, we had more than that.
There could have been some for previous years as well. I
only have FY 24 for 300,000.
I will get the years that the money was appropriated. That's that. Will that be helpful?
Yeah, that would be helpful, because this was FY 24.
Yeah.
Oh, we had more than that, but maybe not. 300K cash. So we have that fund again, John.
Kind of fun we've had before.
But we're not reallocating until we're not doing any reallocation. There's 300,000 in cash from FY 24. You want to see the spreadsheet? It helps to see the spreadsheet.
It actually doesn't help me, but
No, okay, she's gonna check. Yeah, there was 300. Oh, wait a minute. No, yeah, it isn't cash. This is a cash section. Yeah, it isn't cash. I don't think there was anything.
in 24, you have cash for,
Oh, no, gets even better. There is more. You can tell Wanda there is more. In FY 24, there was 300,000 in cash to go to the Ag and A&R lab. In FY 25, there was 1.5 million of bonded dollars. I knew there was more. So there's 1.8.
I have to go do a walkthrough.
Okay. Yeah. So there's 1.8 million that we
I'm a
want.
champion of labor.
where's the 300K? I see the 1.5 in Act 69. I found that. I'm not seeing in,
It is what I have on our spreadsheet, 300K cash in Act 69.
so when I Control F laboratory, there's nothing. Section 8,
18.
18.
We have 1.5 bonded, we have 300,000 cash. That's what's gonna get really hard here between cash and bond. And that 300,000 was probably for planning.
Yes, and I can suggest to the committee, you don't have to touch the task because we can use it for what we need to do at Vail. And if you want to give us the flexibility on the 1.5, because it's bonded, that would be sufficient.
We just want to make sure you got enough money to move forward.
Correct, and.
If you use you must have used some of that cash.
Joe's sending me a summary right now of where we currently are. We're setting the practice, cash goes out the door first.
So it's an Act, John, in Act 69, we did both. 300 cash and 1.5 bonded. 300 cash in 24 and 1.5 bonded in 25. And we did that in Act 69.
Mhm. So do you guys want to do what the commissioner's proposing?
Yeah,
Just the
I think so.
bonded transferability. Okay.
It's gonna make it easier on your end, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I believe we had done some studies and contracts, and I'll make sure that comes out of cash, even if it's
Well, they had 300,000 cash in FY 24, and they had 1.5, whereas it bonded in FY 25.
Mhm.
Same project, and the direction of the project has changed.
Okay.
Simple enough.
Seven. biggie. And then I want to make sure people understand what C means, lines 8 through 11. What was that? That was on page 15, line 8 through 11.
Mhm.
Make sure you know what it means. And if you don't, please ask.
I guess I don't know what, when you update the memorandum, what is the memorandum?
There is an MOU right now between the state and BTC because we built the ag in our land on BTC property. And we are using their heating system right now
That's right. Okay.
for our facility, and that's where the problem is. It's a current MOU that delineates any payment that goes between the two, what the responsibilities are of each party. So with this new upgrade where we're going to be putting in our summer boilers, is it 2 boilers or 3 boilers?
2.
Wanda?
I think the committee probably is recalling better than I am.
One says 2 and one says 3, so
Burners.
3
Yeah,
burners or boilers?
2 boilers, 3
Yeah.
burners.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what,
And the burners are for the colleges.
Yeah, and 3 burners for theirs.
Mhm.
And then
2 summer boilers.
And then it's like, who takes care of the maintenance? Who pays for the fuel? That's what needs to be updated in the MOU. Okay?
Yep.
Safety.
Comma, line 1,
Sorry?
line 1, comma, page 16.
Oh, we're on 16. Yeah. Yes, sounds good to me.
Just page line
I
1.
thought it was fine.
Where are you? You're on
We're
page,
at 16,
16.
page 16.
I'm on 15. I'm trying to track this. Hang on. Public safety.
Yeah, I think we focused on one thing.
The wrong spreadsheet.
Find them first.
I'm trying to
Be a
find.
chance.
Right, I'm-
You're on
4. You're good.
How
You're
you
in the right one.
on the board now? So
These comments, I like.
where's the 2 million?
Over here.
Oh, we split it up.
Yeah,
That's right. We split it up. Oh, and I knew we split something up.
Look
Okay,
at that plate, Troy.
okay,
Thank you.
got it. Yep.
That was cool.
Well, I knew we had sort of split something up, but I wasn't.
Didn't bother you.
5 nights.
Oh.
Okay. Judiciary, here comes the fun. Okay.
Stop.
Should we be on the Essex County Courthouse expansion? Shouldn't we be a little bit more, is that just for the connector? It's a little bit more involved, isn't
It
it?
was supposed to be ADA and everything.
There was that tiny toilet inside and.
I think we need to be a little clearer that it's.
Now she's ahead of me.
Um,
It's like, damn.
'Cause I just want to go. I want to be a little more specific, because it is a county courthouse. And I just don't want to put it out there, we're just building an expansion to a county courthouse for specific ADA updates.
Yeah, I
Upgrades.
spoke with Judge Stransky last week.
And that's for the connector.
Yeah, it's a connector, ADA updates and other elements, maybe, is that?
Yeah,
But
I want to get the word expansion out of there.
Or you don't want expansion on,
I think I want to.
not expansion for ADA updates. You don't
Although-
want that.
And the request was for the Essex County Courthouse connector. And it talks about connecting space between the courthouse and the neighboring currently just joined meeting house.
Mhm.
Appropriation would fund a project to help increase the security at the courthouse, minimize the possibility of a mistrial due to juror interaction, support the smooth and continuous operations of this important regional judicial institution. Project has enjoyed input, that's not relevant, so, but that's.
So
what it
you
says.
need to have the
Connector,
connector and security enhancement.
Yeah.
connector and security,
Security upgrades, whatever.
connector and security upgrades and the ADA updates are included in the connector, so you don't need to, okay. So connector and security updates.
Yeah, and do that on the spreadsheet.
No, you don't think it's fast.
That's part of the security upgrades. Just don't like that word expansion.
Nope.
Gives people too many ideas
Where'd that tip go?
out there.
Where was that? There it is.
It's good. And we doubled down on the protections against maintenance and fuel. We got it both in the designation for Woodstock and Lamoille. We've also got it called out, that you can't use the money for those.
Right.
Don't think you could be more clear. The only thing I would say, although I know this won't change any approach here, is by creating a section that spells out what you don't want money to be used for, while you have already specified what you do want it to be used for, could raise a negative implication that in areas where you don't include language to that effect, but I don't think it's a huge deal, but I would just, something I think about.
It's worthy of flag. It's a good point. Like, well,
If you're a lawyer, right on.
I'll tell you, somebody who tries to play that wrinkle, there would be an implication for them, and they're gonna have a hard time getting any more funding in the future.
Unless,
I mean, that is the background to all of this, is like, there's political accountability regardless of what the,
Yeah, it's.
I gotta come back, yeah.
looks good. Lobbies, yeah.
I was trying to think there's another way to phrase that. I wasn't the negative.
I mean, to me, and if it was only me, I wouldn't have because I think it's clear when you say purchase installation, that that's what it means. And it never really includes ongoing, like regular things such as gas or diesel or whatever. That's just a given. And I agree 100% with John that this opens up where they're like, well, in this section, they said, we can't do this, but in all these other sections, they said we can't, so it must mean we can. And there's a lot of implications to that, whether people choose to actually do it or not. That's different. And like Joe said, come next time, we're like, well, you didn't do what we told you, and you know you didn't. We're not going to help you this time. That's true, but there's really no reason to have that be there.
I agree, I think we're safer without that language there, but.
Without, yeah.
Without
Yeah,
B,
Well, you're getting super specific and weeds, and I don't think people.
But I don't feel horribly strongly either way, but I. If I were doing it unilaterally, I would take it out.
what are other folks saying?
I'm in agreement.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What?
I'm in agreement. Yeah.
Agreement to take it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
I agree. Right.
John, you won one.
I was gonna say, I'm keeping a tally. However, my tally is extremely low. I just remember us going through this and I was like,
Yeah.
You said it.
You do.
I think I even said something like, to be clear, my approach is clearer, like, it's like, this was one where I felt aggressive. I was
We'll
like,
learn.
yeah.
We'll get there. So we'll move on. So
I gotta find wins this week.
17.
Yep,
You won't work so hard this weekend.
Vermont rule.
This weekend could be worse than last. This is gonna be, yeah.
Yeah, so. Fire
Okay,
protection.
dry hydrants. There we go.
There it is.
This is pretty ongoing.
Yep. Make sure.
Yeah, I will say this is one where I did think about the language. This is consistent with the approaches in previous capital bills. I found it sort of odd to have this reference in subsection B to just say we're doing the projects described in subsection A. We could have both specify, but this is what has been done, and that's why it's included here. So no issue. Just wanted to point out.
Yep.
It's something I thought about.
Continuity of.
Yep. Exactly.
That's easy enough.
That's kind of the needle I tried to thread was like maintaining consistency across capital bills while picking up. Yeah.
Yep. Historical Society. Where the heck is that? Oh, there it is. Language
I
we
think I'm good with sections 15 and 16.
Mhm.
the language we asked for is added, so it's good. 17.
Well, here we go, reallocation.
Yep.
So parameters. I'm a lot on you for some of this.
We don't have the language you just gave me.
It's not in this draft. I'm waiting until I make the full revisions, but I do have that available if I
Yeah,
need to
let's-
screen share it.
Maybe, yeah, let's maybe screen share.
What
Do
if,
you want to do that after we get?
yeah,
Yeah.
I got a question on what you've highlighted.
Yep.
Oh, Sean?
So all these, I don't understand. All of the, every one of these goes into specifics.
I did not. So we
I'm
can,
not sure how, do I need to know more about those? Okay,
What you need to know is there has been some previous capital bill
and the
appropriations to specific projects that can date back as far as to 2019,
so the numbers.
17, 15.
Let's see.
That can date
No.
back that far that have either the project has been completed and there is a balance, or the project has not gone forward as much and the money is not needed. And we have clawed back that money and reallocated it to this current capital bill. That's what this is all about.
okay.
So there's all these individual projects
Yeah.
that are listed here.
Oh, money checks out. It's just that I was just, you know.
Okay.
that I-
Right, and they're enumerated on the back of the spreadsheets as well.
And the way the spreadsheet works, the spreadsheet actually includes the department ID and that specific code points to the statutes. Yep. That ties it together without having to type it all out.
Okay, thank you.
So the concept that folks just have to know, these are previous projects that had been approved that either did not go forward or went forward and there was a project balance amount at the end.
And we would, if someone asked us that on the floor, we could answer that way. Okay, thanks.
If they want to get into the specific, you could say something like,
I yield to the chair.
no, you could say, I can,
Johnny.
you can do that. You can take a little recess and
Yeah.
ask, because it's going to be hard to track that, but it does say like the Middlesex Field Station or the parking
Yeah.
garage or whatever. So you highlighted sections 2 through 16 in two places.
Yeah, so this is the cash for cash and bonded for bonded. The point that we were making is that you would reallocate old bonds to the bonded sections on the dollar sections, which are sections 2 through 16, and then you'd reallocate cash to the cash section. And I think that there was broad agreement that this was cleaner and easier to ensure that the tallies you have match up with the figures. So
So you have that in two places. I could see because you divided it up. Also, you divided it up in terms of section 17A deals with all BGS
that's right.
projects.
That's right.
Okay, that's on page 17 and 18 and halfway down 19. And then on lines 11B, that is from ACCD.
Mhm.
There's some projects there that have been bonded in the past.
Mhm.
And then on top of page 20, there is line 1, which is C. Again, there's $112 left from the Memorial Valley Trail. This is from Agency of Transportation that we have some capital dollars go to for that. And then also the Agency of Ag. Sean?
So on page 20, Scott, you know, you've got line 9, and it's Better Roads Program. And in all of reallocations, this is the only one, and I'm only saying this because it's the only grant program that's not listed as a grant program. And I just thought maybe, I don't know if it needs to be in there, but.
Where are you? Oh, never mind, number 3.
Yeah, page 20, line 9,
Okay, gotcha.
where it says Better Roads Program, if you go over to reallocations,
On the spreadsheet.
on the spreadsheet, it says a grant program, and that's I only say that because it's the only grant program in reallocation. At least stated in that, so should we say grants in there?
Rep Sweeney, I can go back and look and see what the department ID pulls.
Okay.
I think it said.
It is
grant.
for program.
It is grant program.
It is grant.
It's better.
Yeah, we just need to change that.
That's all I'm saying, is just to add the word grant. Yeah,
Simple enough.
to the
Line 9.
John's thing, yeah, I just was asking.
Sure. So Better Back Road Grant Program.
On the spreadsheet description is missing detail also.
On the
Sorry
what?
about- no.
So what John has done here is broken it up in terms of what department or agency, because if you keep going on page 21, you're gonna see it too in F, G. And then I'm not gonna go down H yet. So what you've got is A through G is reallocating all the bonded dollars. And they are broken down, the reallocations from where they come from are broken down from either the department it comes from or the agency it comes from.
Yep. I mean, another way.
It's broken down.
That's right. Another way that you could do this, but would result in multiple levels of subdivisions, which I generally like to have as minimal amounts of subdivisions as possible, is have a big bucket, just big category, and then you'd have subdivision for the relevant agency or department, and then even further subdivision for the appropriations. So it's just a structural thing rather than a substantive.
So you've got reallocations coming from BGS, Agency of Commerce and Community Development, Agency of Transportation. You've got another BGS one coming, which is the monument, which is that 419 that is left. That is going to help the 525 we've done in section 2. Wherever we did it. No, it was a ACCD section.
So that's an interesting one, because I think the way that I put this together was I did the governor recommended reallocations, and I went through the list received from the group and from Scott, and I just added those at the end, so it would be clear that they're separate. But if we do have the same entities, you could include that in the, like, our first set of reallocations is from the Department of Buildings and General Services, right? So this particular one that was identified by the repo group could be added to that list of BGS. Yep. So that's simple to do, and that's
BGS, that just goes, it doesn't matter when it came in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The reason that
Was
this is
because
here,
it's going to Sec 4.
because we've specified a particular section. That's right.
It's not going to the bottom line.
That's right.
All the other reallocations, unless noted differently, it's all going to the bottom line of our bill.
Yeah.
It's going into the big pot.
Yeah, I will note the substantive effect would be the same if you, the money.
We want to,
Exactly. Yep.
so there's also reallocations from the Agency of Ed, reallocations from the Agency of Ed, and reallocations from the Agency of Natural Resources. And some of these reallocation amounts and projects came from the administration as it was introduced. And then our repro committee of Troy, Mary, and Brian did further work and came up with a few more. And that's where that is. Now, I'm going to turn it over.
With one exception, and that's the $1 million on line 142. We found that during testimony. That didn't come out of repo.
$1 million where?
The line 142.
The top, yeah.
Right. Oh, that came out of us.
Yeah, we found that during we got testimony from,
We got testimony on that one.
Yes.
I can't remember right now without looking at my notes, why we took that $1 million.
Because they weren't going forward with it as quickly as they
Right.
thought.
Yeah.
I think you reallocated it because we're not projected for 2 more years.
Yeah.
How to get the
Right.
remainder of the money. It wasn't our
Just tying it.
recommendation, it was.
It's like
it
you had
was the
quite a bit of money
committee's,
there.
Decision to do that.
And then in H, here we go. So this is cash.
Yep.
Correct?
Cash fund.
So H and I, that's the only one, right? H and
That's correct.
I deal with cash.
Mhm.
So we had 1.5 at the Vets Home for B and C wing that we're reallocating to the cash section, which is section 19.
Mhm.
Okay. And then an I, we are reallocating 200,000 from the stack area over here on 109, 111, because they're not going forward with that. And that gets reallocated to the cash.
Yep.
fund.
Remind me what the stacks area is.
Know where where you,
With library books go.
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, library?
Yeah.
no,
Well, no,
no,
but-
it's where we have the other rooms in the pavilion,
Oh, yeah, okay.
okay? And if you walk in, you got that big room with the chairs, and then you got the glassed in room.
Yep.
If you went straight, you saw this big folding door that was closed. It
Okay.
was like some stairs, and then this big brown door was closed. Beyond that is a room that held all the stacks for the Vermont Department of Libraries. And all of that was moved and emptied a few years ago. And there was thoughts of using that area for the Supreme Court, because it's wide open in there now. The stacks have been taken down. That was taken down recently. And so now they're trying to figure out, Supreme Court's trying to figure out, they're kind of reorganizing things, so they're not ready to go forward with any plans.
We have a picture in our book, but it's big metal bookshelves.
They're all down
It-
now.
Yeah, but that's what
Yeah.
stacks are. Like if you go in a library, they call them the stacks.
Got it.
So we'll get into section 19. And okay,
Yeah, the change you see at the very bottom of the page, that's because they've previously specified the expenditures in this act, and so it's broadly available across bonded and cash.
Quick clarifying question. There's only two line items that went back to very specific projects, right? That was that was the 58,000, which is going to, I can't remember the name of
it's
it.
going to.
Middlesex Print Postal.
Yes, the total 308. And then the 1,500 went to the A unit.
Right.
Or 15 million, 1.5 million went to the A.
The battle monument, I guess,
That go right back, that went back to the battle.
it kind of like expanded
Yeah,
just by a little bit with the dedicated battle monument. Yeah.
So the 58,000 that you found, whoever found it, is on page 19, line 5 and 6, I'm thinking. That goes back to the bottom line of the capital bill. But we used it for the print and postal.
we have code, we have a section in here that very specifically states that it goes to a certain section on the spreadsheet. That's in here.
The language doesn't, does it?
It does.
How much is it?
Where's that language?
Which project are we talking about? The 1.5?
The 58.
58,279.
Yeah, that goes to the,
It goes to the bottom line.
So it's listed just among, yeah, it goes to bottom line. Yeah.
Page 19.
You want that one pulled out?
I don't know. Do we have to specify that it's going to the print and postal?
The thing I'll say is if you feel that you don't have to specify here, you don't have to specify anywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but the
Right.
one with the vets home, we really want to track.
Okay.
This one is so, doesn't matter, it goes to the bottom line. But the vets home, I think, is important because that's a big chunk of cash.
Here, he's kind of like a narrative.
Yeah. And we want to find out, why didn't we do B and C? Why did you do A? So on page 22, read section 18 and make sure you folks understand it.
Yeah, this is the general authorization to issue bonds aligned with the CDAC, Capital Debt Affordability Advisory Committee. And as you know, that's a 50 mil for each year. So you're seeing a total of 100 million. The reason this diverges, of course, from the figures you see above for authorizations is that you've reallocated, there's other dollars available. So you don't have to match this figure to all of the authorities listed, authorizations listed in the first section. This is your alignment with CDAC recommendation. And as far as I know, I've kind of always followed that recommendation to ensure the state's credit rating is protected.
So what is different this time around is on lines 4 and 5.
Yes, and I will say,
Let's see if they can figure it out.
$500 in the later parts, talk about cash.
Where it says funding the appropriations made in sections 2 through 16.
Mhm.
Sections 2 through 16 in the bill
That goes.
is where all the bonded dollars go. So we worked with John to really figure out how we can track this in our language. So we're very clear. All those projects at the front of the bill in sections 2 through 16 are bonded dollars. You're not gonna see that delineated on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
It's in the bill. It's
Okay.
not on the spreadsheet. It's in the bill.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's the problem with that too.
I just want committee members to understand this, because this will really build the base to help you going forward.
Yep. It's new because you didn't have cash before.
Yeah, and we haven't split it up like this before either, so
Mhm.
we're hoping by doing this, it really helps us be able to track it
Mhm.
better. Okay, let's go down to section 19. So do folks understand what's being said on 12, lines 12 through 14?
32 PSA, that's cash then?
That's the cash fund.
Okay.
Okay. So in addition to bonds being issued, there are capital projects that are going to be funded by cash.
Mhm.
That's what 32 VSA 1001B indicates. That's the cash fund. That's a statute that establishes the cash fund.
And that's sub-account A, or does it matter?
This doesn't specify the sub-accounts. One, just for general education purposes,
Yep.
because sometimes you'll see something like a 1001B, 701A. Typically, when you hear us say 701A or 1001B, you're thinking that's a subsection within a bill, right? It's like, oh, it's section 1001 and subsection B. The reason you see something like this 1001B here is that within the statutes, we look to a subchapter and we run out of room to specify anything. So the next sections that come end in a letter. So 1001A, 1001B. And so you can end up with a reference to, for instance, if we were trying to call out one of the particular subaccounts, the reference you would see would be 1001B subsection B or something to that effect. So that's why when you see that non-parenthetical letter after a section, that's what that means. We ran out of room in the green books.
So in B, I want folks to really read this and understand what it's saying.
This is huge. This is
huge. So you got to read it and understand it. B.
Yep. This, I'm referencing that as cash.
You got to read the language and understand it.
Why don't we just use the term cash fund then? In addition to 32 VSA,
It's how we do statute.
that,
It's how we do statute when we reference the actual statute.
well, yeah, I'm just saying both, but.
You could do that. I mean, you could change from maybe funded from the fund and you could say the title of the fund. That's helpful. And that's,
Right? For people
Just-
understanding what B is saying.
Yeah, I have a question about,
Understand it.
this takes us to subsection E, which gives a deadline for the administration to identify the projects of December 25. Why is that deadline so far out?
but why is it so far out? If it's helpful to provide the background as to why this is here, this is what you guys did just for the broader committee last year or the year before to make sure that projects came in, I guess, as an adjustment to the Appropriations Act.
So we want it there before the BAA. That's what that is.
This is the language you guys just changed to from 2 years to 3 years the other day.
No,
This is not that. That's for cash encumbrance.
let's just get the intent of B first and not go to what Troy asked.
Well, that's part of B.
I know, but you gotta understand what B is saying.
I know what B is saying. I just, that
I
was
know
my,
you do. I want to make sure the rest of the committee knows, because this is really important.
Do you want me to explain or do you just want people to?
I want them to read first and then see. Because sometimes people explain, they're not paying attention as much.
I'm going to start using that when I go to committee and just say, I'm not here to talk. Here to watch.
Or you could just say something completely irrelevant, see if people shake their heads and,
Right?
I've included appropriations for John Gray of $2 billion.
Page is E.
Sounds good. Have a good weekend.
Hung up on E.
Sorry,
What's the first
sorry.
sentence saying?
Sorry.
What is the first sentence saying?
We're
Lines
authorizing
B.
use of this money.
For what? What money and
The
for
cash-
what?
The cash.
Cash fund
For these appropriate
for
projects.
2026 appropriations.
And then there's the same.
And then-
What's at the end of line 16 and the beginning of 17? That's
But-
the important part to understand. That's the important part to understand.
Authorize versus appropriate is.
We are authorizing, if you look on line 15, we are authorizing certain capital projects that are eligible for cash. Okay? But the funds for these projects are appropriated in the FY 26 Appropriations Act.
Big bit.
That's very clear.
Yes.
We're saying these projects exist, we support them, but the money's coming out of the appropriations bill.
That's important to
Cash fund.
That's important to understand.
Okay.
Because we've been told, some folks think that we have the authority to appropriate the cash in our capital bill for the projects. We don't have that authority. It is done through the Appropriations Act. We allocate the money, we allocate the amount of money to be used for the projects, but we don't appropriate that cash. We
Yep.
don't do the appropriations of our bill.
Got it.
And that's really a fundamental piece to understand. And then it's also our intent, and this is where you get into E, it's also our intent that the appropriations bill appropriate the funds
For 2027.
for FY 27.
Pursuant to process that works.
That's where your section E, you go to section E.
I can't find it. I don't know where
Wait,
section.
it's section, you gotta keep looking. You gotta
I
follow it.
On page 24.
Oh, gotcha,
You got
gotcha.
C.
Yeah. I see it.
And
On or
then you
before the
got
50.
D.
Yeah,
Yep.
And then you got,
And it
where
tells
it is, right here.
okay.
It tells you 1 and 2.
So the administration needs to review and recommend what capital projects are to be funded through the cash fund. And would submit that list for FY 27. On or before December 5th. You don't usually see it. Unless they do an email and then it gets lost. And then it gets put in the capital.
Yeah, just a note there, it goes to the governor for that report. Yep.
Yep.
That's okay.
Someone's gonna have to explain this on the floor. And it's not gonna be me.
It's gonna be Troy.
No, I think
That's not
so.
that hard.
I called King.
So, Madam Chair, could I just ask clarity, just for the 27, because we put a proposal together that for 26 and for 27.
Yeah, that's.
But we can't,
And so this language is saying, come back by December 15th and really reiterate that plan for any adjustment.
because the issue is, we do a 2-year budget. But we don't know what the cash is gonna be for FY 27 because the appropriations only does 1 year at a time. So we can say, this is our intent, basically, when we put money, which we have for FY 27 for some cash. It doesn't mean it's gonna necessarily be there because we don't know what the FY 27 is gonna be.
But you're asking us to present it in the budget, not in our capital bill budget adjustment. Both.
Budget adjustment.
Capital bill.
Point of clarification, we have not allocated cash for FY 27.
No, you haven't, but are we
We
presenting
haven't
it
passed,
as
though.
capital bill?
But we haven't passed.
That's what I can't remember.
I think we have in the past,
I just have to be.
I'm new to this, so I just want to make sure.
but it does say budget adjustment, capital, but it says to the capital budget adjustment report.
Good.
Yes, I'm just
It's on page 24.
Line nine- line nine-
22.
line 19, on page 24.
That's probably the problem.
No problem.
So
Page
my apologies.
24, and it starts on line 13 and goes all the way down to 19.
Jim, so I did
We're gonna
misunderstand.
have
Thank
more
you.
for the-
See, well, you didn't even read it and you were still right.
for the BAA.
You gotta be on the right page, sir.
What cash haven't we? in
No, I think you're right. I think we'll get an infusion for the BAA of
Mhm.
new cash with the FY 27 big bill.
Yes.
They're gonna do the formula again.
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Yep.
Right.
And I just,
Think-
I just got the BAA in my head from last year. I don't have the initial 23.
Yeah. Don't either.
Up to 4%.
No, that's up to, but we just, with the
Yeah,
mercy of.
this is
I don't
saying,
know what it is.
this is saying by December 15th, 2025, the administration is going to say this is where the cash for FY 20,
Right,
and we're gonna play with it in the BAA.
for FY 27.
Yes.
Yes.
But you're right, we don't have anything in there for FY 27. I'm trying to think, did we do anything last year in the beginning of the
Let me
biennium?
look up,
What was the,
Rings a bell, actually.
sorry, which one are you?
what was that 23, 24, capital bill act number? It's
Oh, 23,
69.
69, and 24 is 162.
69, I've got 69 here.
I don't know.
You got 69 and I got 62. I just want to see if we did any. I tried, well. See, it's hard to tell on the spreadsheet because the spreadsheet's the final one.
It's easy because there isn't.
Well, you know what we did? No, we did put cash. Cause Act 69, like on the 120 State Street HVAC, we did $1 million in FY 24 and we did $2 million in FY 25
Cash,
cash.
we had the cash up front.
Yeah, well, that's how we did it. And then when we got back and did the budget adjustment, we cut the cash by $500,000. But we did do it. If you look on this spreadsheet.
And I will just say you can do it in all senses. This is an intense section. So you're just developing
Yeah.
intent for what you
I
want to
just got
do.
confused.
You have the same ability to event intent for FY 27 as you do FY.
But it probably came through as the governor's recommend. Because it comes up in in Act 69, which was the beginning, 2 years ago, beginning of the biennium, we're at a solid 10 million in funds, cash fund. Now, it depends what the governor recommended in the budget. It's section 18. That was the cash section.
Yeah.
So we've done it. And in fact, if you go to McFarland House, we added it $1 million in FY 24. We didn't do anything in 25. And we added it in our X 162. So we've made some adjustments.
Yeah, so it's just, we didn't get any cash for FY 27.
I think there's just no recommendation for FY 27, but you could have one. I mean, you're not hurt either.
Yeah,
It'll
no,
be
it's
in
the
there.
same body. So then. So now I'm back to this section. What's the need then for a new report for December 15th?
So
There's not going to be new cash.
What do you mean?
maybe a helpful question here is when you guys developed, because this language is not new, it just has new dates.
No.
When you developed this for the 23 process, do you recall if you envisioned that as a one-time thing where you're just trying to figure out the process? You wanted to make sure that these things happen, and it was just kind of like kickstarting.
Yeah.
But not necessary language. It was just like making clear that this is the process you're going to have.
So you picked up this language from previous.
23. That's right.
I don't see a harm in the language.
No, it's not. It's just, I just don't know why we need it, I guess. I'm just,
I think John hit the nail on the head. I think it's when when we first started this cash fund, we were not sure how it was gonna work out. We knew we did a 2-year budget. We knew appropriations did a 1-year budget. And we were very cognizant that the second year of our biennium, there might not be any cash coming to us. We were very cognizant of that. That the administration could say, nope, this particular year, the general fund's in really tough shape. We're not doing any cash for capital projects. It was an unknown. It was a real
I remember that,
unknown.
yeah.
And it was before last biennium. It was when we first set it up, which was the previous biennium from when you were here and when Connor was here and Gina was here.
So then the question becomes, are you comfortable that this has not been necessary yet? Or do you want to give it a little bit more time since it's still new? Those are the two sides, right?
Yeah, the end result is it doesn't matter.
Right.
I just don't know why, when there's no cash for FY 27 plan, we're asking them to file a report by December 15th on what we're gonna do with the cash that doesn't exist.
You're saying one-off in this case, like this might be language you're comfortable with, but in this
Yeah.
particular year, it is.
Okay.
Because the previous year, there was money.
Because it won't take them 2 seconds to do this if there's no cash.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I would,
And actually, the administration asked you to consider amending
Oh,
the
yeah.
December 15th.
Did?
Yes, if you go to the governor's proposed budget. We actually asked that we strike out December 15th and say not later than the 3rd Tuesday of.
Well, that's where we did the
Yeah,
update,
we're coming to
coming
that.
up to that.
Okay, well, so your dates.
So you're
should
saying
align
you
with
do,
your keeping
yeah,
it-
so you're saying you do it during the governor's address and you don't do it on December 15th. That's what it's saying. Remember, we updated that
Yes,
third Tuesday of the year? It was like, what do you mean? Is that when the budget, is it the governor presents his budget?
so,
So,
sorry.
so the recommend was to delete December 15th and do it during the budget
That's
presentation.
correct.
Intuitively, it makes sense to the two if you accepted there. Why distinguish cash? So that's a simple change.
So do we delete? This is intent language, so it's not statute. Right?
There is some language in Title 32, 701, and that's what I'm referring to. I'll let you from me.
Okay, well, because John's already done this in another section, so we'll just align it to the same.
But
It's on page
that
25.
wasn't my question though.
Yes, that we have that. included.
Right, so the intent language that refers to E, that is not statute.
Yeah, it is the intent that you appropriate funds which shall be allocated pursuant to the process. I mean, it's interesting because it picks up a non-intent section, but I would say that because it originates in an intent section, you could say there's nothing that has to be done if that's.
Do we need anything to that effect of December 15th in the intent language? If we're clarifying the statute,
Yeah, it's almost like what the intent is expressing is we hope you guys come back with cash and we've set out a process for you to follow. Subsection E.
so keep the intent line, I'm looking on page 22, folks. Lines 19 through 21. This is where it kicks you to subsection E. So instead of saying pursuant to the process set forth in subsection E, you just say it's allocated pursuant to governor's budget address or whatever it is.
Or you don't have to say that at all. You could just say it is also the intent that you appropriate funds for projects in FY 2027.
Period.
Yeah.
Leave it simple.
Whichever way you think, John, is what I would support, because you know how you're doing.
but that makes sense.
Okay.
take out,
And take out E, and then we don't need to align the date because it's.
I mean, I don't think this will happen, but conceivably, the folks could decide that they're gonna give us more. Right? There's no prohibition from that.
so you're taking out the rest of that sentence after FY 27 on line 20.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. The last clause.
And you actually take out, do we actually delete E
Yes, yes.
completely?
And I don't know if you guys have gotten to the full page 24. Okay, I was gonna say I have a comment about the 2
We
million.
haven't even talked to 23.
You said we're taking out the complete.
Yep,
Subsection E, that's right. 24, page 24.
no longer necessary.
So that would be E, which is 1 and 2.
Yep.
Okay. So let's go back
It should be two more.
to the top of page 23.
Okay.
Now, this is where it gets a little dicey. So this is the authorization. So it authorizes the allocation of these dollars to these projects.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, I think this is identifying the projects you want to be addressed in the Appropriations Act.
Does not appropriate them,
It allocates.
allocates them.
Authorizes to be pedantic about it.
And so these are all the projects on the spreadsheet
Mhm.
that are paid for from cash.
Mhm.
And we will have a separate, no, we're not doing that anymore, having a separate section in the spreadsheet. They're all gonna be with the line item of the project,
Column is.
column.
And now it's the column, not, it's vertical, not horizontal. Yep, that is correct.
Number four
I do.
column.
It seemed like they match up. I don't know if, I assume they have already skipped ahead to 23, Troy.
Switch. 14.5,
Yeah.
we're not there.
Some more of them. you know.
Well, I've mentioned that one ad nauseum.
I know, and I'm still not, I know.
Okay.
Are we on page?
We make it the 23. kind of the-
23.
Yes.
So the only thing that was added was on 23. What was added that was not originally in the governor's recommend was lines 19 and 20, which is the A wing for the design and construction. We checked with Melissa Jackson, and I believe that we came back with
Mhm.
design and construction.
Yep, she did, yep.
And that would be the 1.5, it's the cash that was for B and C. Wait. The only thing that got added, right?
Yep.
For the cash. Yeah,
So we'll come to another thing, but yes,
well, is that the other thing, the 2 million?
it's, you know.
Yeah, well, that was-
Okay,
Yeah, that's,
want to confirm.
it is, but it's kind of different. Okay, lines 24, authorization. So. Read it and tell me what are the cash fund you're thinking it is. You gotta read it. So do you know what D is saying?
Say it right.
Uh-uh. What is, you know what it's
Oh, it's-
dealing, you know what it's dealing with? Don't tell them, John. I want to figure it out.
It's Clean water revolving fund, but,
D,
oh, I'm on one, never mind.
D, you're gonna understand what D is. It's important to understand this. I feel like I'm a teacher here.
Well, guess what? I'm glad you finally admitted it.
It's gonna help you later on when
No.
you're on the floor and you're reading bills that you don't understand. It will help you. What does D refer to? What does it say? If you don't know, Just let me know.
It's sub-account B.
It's sub-account B because it's.
It is
for capital-
sub-account B
Yeah.
Capital,
of the cash fund.
yeah.
Other things.
Other infrastructure, essential investments and reserve sub-account.
Yeah.
That is referring to sub-account B of the cash fund.
Yep.
Sub-account A lists our capital projects, right?
Mhm.
Sub-account B lists other things,
Okay,
okay?
yep, got it.
So one deals with the IIJA, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That's lines 7 and 8.
Mhm.
Okay? There was 14.5 million that was put aside 3 years ago, for our state match for drinking water and clean water projects to the federal government.
Mhm.
It's a big infusion of infrastructure upgrades.
Nick referred to it as a parking lot.
Yep.
Oh,
That
Sub-
14.5 was in a parking lot.
was in a parking lot. Yeah, they parked it. They're parking other stuff in there too. Let me
Under the
tell you.
parking garage.
Well, without concrete floors. So that 14.5 was cash that was put in there 2 or 3 years ago, and it is now being released.
Yep.
But we're just referencing this. It's actually going to be done in appropriations.
Yep.
So number 2 is what?
That's the three
Those
pieces.
are the Bs, but John had a comment.
Second,
Just want people to know
Yeah.
that this is where we moved $2 million of,
The 3 million recommended.
yeah, but it was 3 mil, what we did, it was 3 million bonded. We wanted to go to cash. We did the cash. But we're saying that cash for that 2 million in that project goes into sub-account B of the cash fund, not sub-account A, which would list our capital projects. So it takes it completely out of our capital bill. Now, there's another step. I think you're in the loop on this, John. Hope. It's going to be done a little different.
yes, and the approach is very clean. I think it makes sense.
Than this.
So cutting the 2 million, and basically you were gonna receive a transfer and then you would just not use that money and ask someone else to use the money. So why not just reduce the amount of the transfer that you receive? And you don't have to create this multi-step process. You accomplish the same effect.
So the transfer is the cash from our bill to appropriations. And instead of putting it in this sub-account B, and then appropriations will then deal with it, we're gonna do a straight 2 million transfer with the Bs. And general fund will appropriate that in the Agency of Commerce and Community Development in the big bill.
Or is it that, or is it just never came from appropriations?
It's as if it never had anything to do with this bill.
Right, never
Yeah.
came from us.
But it never came to us, it never passed through us.
That's right.
So we don't need to even speak of it.
There will be nothing,
Nothing.
there will be nothing in the bill.
Nothing, there's no language, there's nothing on the
Yeah.
spreadsheet, it's a direct transfer.
Well,
We'll never.
it's on the spreadsheet,
Now you.
because it's on the spreadsheet as the governor's recommend.
That's the problem.
We'll deal with that.
Well, you gotta present on the spreadsheet, but in terms of where you track it, the 2 million, because I had a conversation with the chair of approps, Scott and Emily from JFO to figure out what's the best way, and we decided just do a straight transfer, and they're gonna have a line item in their budget for this project.
Madam Chair, if I could offer some clarification for anybody that's not following exactly. The way the cash fund works to get sources of money, there are 3 sources of money, right? One is the 4%, up to 4% transfer in. One is the reallocation of stuff that we did, and one is leftover money from previous years. So what we're saying here, the way this language is written, we would put 2 million into account B. But to get 2 million to account B, we're gonna take some of the money that we transferred in, put into account B, and then give that money to appropriations and transfer back out. So instead of that, let's just lower the initial deposit of money by the 2 million, then they'll have it on the spreadsheet. What you'll see is the GovRec had 14 million in. We're going to change that number. So it's going to be lowered by the amount of money that we're going to give over to appropriations.
Mhm.
Then in appropriations, they're going to have 2 million for ACCD, for housing, whatever.
Mhm.
So that's how that's going to work. So it's going to be disappeared from here. So when you wonder why, people ask, basically it's as if it
Shifted
never
it.
happened.
Yeah, we shifted it to appropriations.
Mechanically,
Oh,
we
we just
shifted over
refused
there.
it.
Yeah, good.
We refused it.
We stayed out of account
Okay.
fees, and we don't need to worry about that. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Scott.
It'll be fun end of the session, isn't it? Conference committee with the ropes and conference committee here.
Madam Chair, just, Probst has asked me when we can go down and speak to them about the cash flow today. So I said, it'll be a while because we're doing our capital bill.
Yeah. So we don't need this language.
Yep.
Correct. I've already, yep.
So we delete all of D, correct?
No, we just delete subsection 2 and then 1 will become part of,
Why do we have to do 1? 'Cause that's not really us. That was in sub-account B. We have no control of sub-account B, so why do we have to do this?
I'll just say, when you guys say you have no control of something, that's a choice you're making. You can do whatever you want. That's a choice.
I mean, it does go towards our drinking water and wastewater match, right?
It's gonna show up in our,
We should keep it, but we're
Mhm.
not the ones who
The,
we're
the,
authorizing.
the point I would make is,
get to go to those projects, right?
it's useful here to think about what you say for what you guys reference as sub-account A.
I got it.
It's a very similar process. In both cases, you're expressing intent that it's dealt with in the Appropriations Act. So,
Got it.
E's going away.
Right at.
So that's all gone.
Yep.
Even that, yeah.
So we're on
It's
S.
now, yeah.
What is this?
And you expanded.
Page 25, then.
Of the emergency generator. Oil plant replacement.
Yeah, this is the veterans home. So between the American Unit and Boulder.
A minute here between, so that's your vets home design and construction.
Even that, yeah.
Oh, all right,
Yeah,
this is
the
the
money they have
transfer,
before.
okay.
It's just transfer authority. So if you're,
It's the transfer and the unexpended project balance. And what is the amount appropriated? That's the emergency.
I can find that.
There. Well, yeah, we did do that.
recent.
Yeah.
Transfer between, so that's transferring between,
The money you guys have allocated, sent.
I know, I'm just recalling, did you? Yeah, we did that, okay.
Yeah, that was your idea.
It was, I'm just, that is the 1.5 for A wing.
4.5 for emergency generator and boiler plant replacement. That's what I had listed.
Yeah,
So Act
that was-
69,
Yes.
Section 15,
Pretty high, and that's,
U1. I got it here if it's helpful to see.
No, that's all right.
hopefully it wasn't clear, right? No, it wasn't.
Well, it was 23, yeah.
1.5, that was
So actually,
why, what year was that? FY 24, Sean?
So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Yeah, subsection 701A, capital construction bill, John, is that all boilerplate?
Mhm.
Okay, just wanted to know.
so when you say boilerplate, you mean things that we're not changing?
Yeah, well, this one's a little different. This one is statute that we're.
Yeah, so this is a transitionary area, and I can pause if I can explain this now, or if you guys are done with the above sections. This is like the point in the bill where you move between one zone to another. Before, you've been talking about money for projects. Money can be in the form of bonded dollars, it can be in the form of cash. That's what you guys just walked through. You talked about reallocations and the like. We're now hitting the policy section, which is language changes, so tweaks to the way you do particular programs. In this case, the section that you're looking at here is related to the format of the capital construction bill, and it relates to the date that we were talking about before, when that has to arrive. But the whole policy section is quite different from the sections above. It's, do you want to tweak programs? You can envision that before we were talking about the 3Bs, when we were creating a in-session law sunsetting grant program, that goes to the policy section. It's not part of the projects, it's not part of the appropriations, it's not part of the money. It's just talking about language, policy language. Section money is numbers. It's the way, easy way to think about it.
So boilerplate is like what you found at the front of the bill.
Right.
The intent, that's always with every capital bill. We're gonna
Okay.
put the same thing in year after year after year. That's what's termed boilerplate.
Okay,
Yeah, this is law that's in the green books that you're
It'll
seeing
look
here.
right here.
okay.
If you see section 20, and right after that, you see 32 VSA section 701, that's law. If you don't see a VSCA indication or any section, it's a session law.
Okay.
It's not in the green books.
And it is important to say, that both are law. There's not some
Right.
uneven difference. It's just
It's not
where it
in
is.
the book.
Things that are in session law, the reason they're there is they're envisioned as temporary. So don't put them in the green books, and you can think of appropriations and the like as time limited, right? So you don't put those in the green books. You just have them in session.
You don't
But
put
that's
that.
just as much law as what you see in those books up there.
And our whole capital bill is not in the green books. If you look at section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, it's not in the green books. But once you start seeing like an 8 VSA.
Title references.
Title reference,
Sure.
that's amending state law in the green books. And that's gonna help you folks a lot on the floor when you see a lot of bills here.
Gotcha.
How to read a bill 101.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting today. I'm not doing it again. You have to understand it to read it.
So, I'll, at this point, you don't need to do the same kind of line by line thing that you've been doing above, because you're looking at the actual law that's in the books. So I'll start speaking to what these actually do. So 701A, we're talking about the capital construction bill down on line 7. So I'll preface this. The reason you see D here and no underlining or strike through, I've included that for context, so you know what's going on. And the reason I included it for context is because subdivision 2 at the bottom of that page references subdivision 1. So it's included here. Nothing's happening to that subdivision D1. It's just for context. The only change is what you see on line 17 and 18. So previously, in current law, what it says is that on or before December 15th each year, the Commissioner of Finance and Management submits in a consolidated format the reports about unexpended project balances. And that's what's described in subdivision D1 above. This is a proposal to change that from December 15 to being the third Tuesday of every annual session to align it with when the budget report is done.
Yeah, that's what we agreed on the other day.
On page 26, what you're seeing here is the language reflecting the request for a chart. That's what this is. So this is talking about the form that the budget takes, the 10-year capital program plan. We'd spoken before about the comprehensive cost and financing assessment. That's referenced on line 10. And I noted before that this, while you're receiving the report in a format that is a forward-looking 10 years, there's a small backward-looking element that is already included in existing law. And that's what you see on line 11. So amounts appropriated and expended for the current fiscal year and for the preceding fiscal year shall be indicated for capital programs and for individual projects. So you can think of that as section referencing, this has got to be part of the packet of information that you receive, and it has some backward-looking component to it. So we talked before about this language. I think I've actually already run this by you guys, but I don't know that you've seen it in this nice, clean format. Adding, in addition to that backward-looking language, a 5-year look back that has the information you guys requested. So for the 5 fiscal years preceding these, and you could use a different term if you didn't, it's sort of arbitrary, but it's a neat number. The assessment shall include the aggregate amounts appropriated and expended for individual projects, which amounts shall be categorized by funding type, so whether that's cash or bonded dollar, and presented in a format that concisely displays the funding stream, project phases for each individual project over time.
Looks great.
I think this captures, and I think there was discussion of this before, so hopefully,
That's great. Perfect.
So I would want to make sure the commissioner can weigh in on this, because she was thinking about some of this earlier this morning.
So
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you were
I'm
thinking.
totally fine. I read the language because I was given a copy of the bill. And I was processing what you were trying to accomplish. I understand where John is logically putting it in this section of law. So John, subsection 310
Mhm.
is the form in which we collect the information. And working on this, so we've created it, and everyone submits in
Okay.
accordance of this. In their
Like a
capital
template.
bill request, and it's a template, which then goes to the administration and they start working through the projects.
So this is what intended more for the departments and agencies that file their requests to the fifth floor.
So when we first created the 10-year and you moved to this, and I actually worked with you and Catherine Benham and Emily on it. So that's the form and function. This is the information we're supposed to collect.
That's not our book.
This
This is not our book that we get from the
It's where we
administration.
get the information from the agencies and departments on their requests and their funding. And then if I can, and then this section, I think you've got it's clear, I understand the intent of what they're trying to get. Well, you've added this to the second year, is that correct? Because when I look at little b, it says the capital budget request for the following biennium shall be presented as the next increment of the 10-year. I may be in the wrong place, I'm
One-
on the wrong page.
Yeah, one moment while I pull up the.
Yeah,
I will just note one thing here because this is really interesting. Part of what we had talked about framing up the discussion was that BGS understands the request and that you didn't need statutory language to address a chart request, that it's national information to include. And the point that was articulated was that because this is not BGS, but
Agency.
AOA.
AOA.
that we needed language to address this. But if AOA is just receiving a template, the template could be put together in a way that accomplishes the information without requiring language to achieve it. I'm not objecting to including it here. I'm just saying, to me, that is an important thing to note. I didn't realize there was a template that was used.
yeah, it started out because we went to a 2-year capital bill and then we wanted to do 10-year projections, so there was a form. That form that we created years ago has been brought into a system called WIMS, which is where we collect
What's your
the
whim?
information from everyone on what their capital needs are, because they're required to submit that to the Secretary of Administration. And they look at priorities and they talk about it. But what you're referencing, so BGS has always put the capital bill in a visual presentation. And there was, what I believe this is saying is we want the tables back.
In the capital,
That
in our book.
That used to.
This is not the correct
book.
place. This is not the correct place to do that. Is that what you're
Well, I
saying?
don't know if it's I think, I know the administration has talked, we presented to you a capital budget in a different format this year. Which is what we would say we are required by statute to do, which was the bill. The book has been the method in which it was presented. One could say all we need to do is provide that bill. And what you want in the summary of projects being presented, you would like this every year and you would like the table in it every year. That's what I'm hearing and I think what I read. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to get what we want.
Do folks understand where Wanda's coming
Yes.
from?
Yes.
The new folks, you understand that? That this is the process, where the language is right now, the highlighted language, is in the internal process that occurs in the administration starting in the fall. Where the agency of administration goes out to all the departments and agencies and asks what your capital needs are. And then they submit their capital needs to the fifth floor, to the agency of administration. What this language is saying is that when the agency of administration goes out in the fall, gather that information, it has to be relayed to them with a chart in terms of previously expended monies for current projects, and to categorize that, but did it get cash or bond? And also displays that funding stream in the phase of the project. Is it in planning? Is it going out to bid, or is it construction? We wanted that chart that explains all that when we get the capital budget from the governor in our three-ring notebook. So it's a whole different place.
Get the capital proposal. We're all sensitive about words.
Right. Connor, and then James, and then Joe.
Yeah, last biennium, I recall, didn't we have some language put in to sort of direct how we wanted information presented to us from the different, like, departments? Seems like it's a similar type of thing, and we go the same
Your
place.
tax list. Okay, I don't know. I don't.
I forget whether it was the first or second.
I'll look through the policy sections for both. See what to do.
For James?
I would just say maybe it's the wrong place, and having the wrong entity presented to the wrong entity. But I like the language.
Just put it in the right
But put it
place.
in the right place, because clearly, I mean, and it doesn't mean anybody did anything maliciously. It's just not that somewhere along the line before I moved to this committee, that there was charts. Now there aren't charts, and we want charts because we love charts. We're charters. And so we want either we're gonna put the faith in that maybe Wanda has sway with AOA or something, and or somebody has sway, and they're going to do it because we asked, or we have to put it somewhere in the right this language somewhere in the right place, so that they're compelled to do it. Not by good.
May I offer why it's included here so I can understand why this doesn't, because I trust I trust your description of the situation. So this is describing the biennial capital budget request submitted to the General Assembly to be accompanied by, and I'm just reading from 310A, which is, you can't see it, but I'll just, each biennial capital budget request submitted to the legislature shall be accompanied by and placed in the context of a 10-year state capital program plan to be prepared and revised annually, approved by the General Assembly. The 10-year plan shall include a list of all projects that will be recommended for funding in the current and ensuing 9 fiscal years, to be prioritized based on need. If that is not what you guys get, what is this? And I'm asking that genuinely, because I'm also new to this. So I'm just
So read that again.
each, so
And this is, what, is that?
section 310.
A.
And I can pull it up on screen if that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. So section title is, you can see here, form of annual capital budget and 10-year capital program plan. Subsection A says each biennial capital budget request submitted to the General Assembly shall be accompanied by and placed in the context of a 10-year state capital program plan to be prepared and revised annually by the governor and approved by the General Assembly.
It's more connected to the 10-year plan.
10-year plan would include a list of all projects that will be recommended for funding in the current and ensuing 9 fiscal years, and the list to be prioritized based on need. So
It does say presented to us.
I just wanted to know
It's
which,
more than a 10-year plan, I think.
this is the 10-year capital program plan. Yep.
So is there any other place in the statute, and I'm gonna look at Wanda because she's worked with us many times over the years. I know in the old days, it was the Department of Commissioner of BGS that put together the capital bill. It is now the Agency of Administration. Is there anything else in statute that pertains to how the Agency of Administration puts together the capital bill and presents that to the legislature? Is this the only place?
I think that this is the specific section of statute that talks about data and information collected for the capital bill. So I understand why John put it here. I think you're asking for it to be presented to you in a specific
Format,
form. And
the capital
You have-
budget.
but you clearly have this table in mind.
And it's for the
And
current,
I don't know if we would necessarily, if all would interpret that this is a table.
So
Is that the simple?
yes, so that's why I raised the informal point, and like if it goes out as a template and all that needs to be updated is a template to ensure that the information is provided in a manner that it can then be put in a chart for presentation to you guys, then having an agreement that the template would reflect that should practically be sufficient. But I understand that the group wants definitive assurances that that's.
I mean, we're
You
not
get a
gonna,
memo. No,
you're not gonna get the memo.
And just, the subsection B heading here is just capital budget request for the following biennium. It's presented as the next increment of that 10-year plan. So this is speaking specifically to the capital budget request. And it says elements of the plan shall include, and then this specifies as an additional element included this 5-year look back.
But it's coming from the respective departments and agencies to the agency of administration. Those, and when you start thinking where you would see the charts in terms of previous appropriations, bonded or cash, and are they in a planning stage? Are they gone out to bid, or are they in a construction stage? If you're within the BGS world, you would know that. If you're within the DOC world, if you're a DOC entity submitting the request, they're not going to know that unless the DOC will know it because the money's gone through DOC. The judiciary is not going to know that.
Right, if the money is appropriated to the Department of Buildings and General Services, we traditionally would do the chart.
Right.
And we would present that, as you've seen, we've presented in partnership with judiciary, with public safety.
And
Right,
DOC.
they have their program and they have their vision, and we have oversight of helping them accomplish that through the world of construction.
So would it be in the commissioner of DOC, of BGS's responsibility to do this for those particular projects or under the jurisdiction?
Well, it really comes back to Madam Chair, I think one of the, I think Representative Casey said it, it'd be interesting to see what you expect in the presentation. So someone mentioned you may have done something last
I
year.
don't think we did. We didn't do it last year.
Yeah, sorry, I'd stop.
Might have been the year before that.
I'm looking on the year
Yeah.
before.
Are you talking about what was in Act 69?
Yeah.
So this is about what I have. On or before November 15th of each year, the Commissioner of Finance and Management shall require each entity to which spending authority has been authorized by a capital construction act enacted in a legislative session that was 2 or more years prior to the current legislative to submit a report on the current fund balances of each authorized project with unexpected funds. The report shall include plans for the unexpected funds, any projects, contracts the funds are assigned to, and an anticipated timeline for expending the funds.
That's the unexpended, that's your repo. That came from you guys. That came from you guys. It was for the reallocations.
You sure?
Unexpected, yeah, unexpended funds. Yep.
But wasn't that doesn't inform what we're asking about here? Hold on, let me back up.
So I remember you folks weren't getting.
I'm on page 31 or 32.
What I understand, if you go back to some of the presentations that Director Asia, when we first presented our projects, we were asked to go back and include the table that we used to do. We weren't able to do it in detail, but I think further presentations throughout the session, Director Asia put those in PowerPoint.
Yes.
And if I'm understanding the conversation correctly, I haven't been speaking of.
But
all
we,
year.
right, but we don't get the chart for every single part. Like, we don't get it for VHCB, we don't get it for A&R, we don't get it for clean water. We only get it for some specific projects. Because the other stuff just moves so differently, forests and parks, all that stuff.
So you're
moves
saying
different.
for every section of a capital bill presented, and I'm asking this by the agency administration, or any previously funded projects, want a presentation on all past and which is the chart. So you want to see that from, I'm just, if I could, Madam Chair, on NR.
You're not gonna be able to give it total. It's gonna be a
So
different
that's,
structure.
that's why I'm just trying to,
Yeah, it's gonna be a different structure.
Can I interject something practical unrelated to this?
Please.
Just that I have to be in another committee at 3:30. So at this point, it will be too late for me to make all of these amendments and send it off to editing prior to me going to appropriations. So I just wanted to make, my hope had been that I could do something before I went to appropriations and then come back with an edited document immediately afterward, but it's now going to be later for me to do that. But just
How long are you gonna be in the probes or ways and means?
appropriations. I don't think it'll be long, but I don't know what's happening and I keep getting texts responding to questions from finance, but,
My question on this for everybody, I guess, is, seems like it's a sticking point. Maybe he's not, maybe I'm hearing it wrong. I heard what John, when he read it, it seems like it, to me, it's what's being presented to us. We're hearing that it's not, that's okay. But if it's that big of a sticking point on his total bill, can we take it out for now and just move on? Because I mean, this is my personality. I don't beat things to death that aren't super important to me. And I think to me, if we can't agree on this particular language that to me is simple, then it's worthwhile taking out and thinking about it longer for the next year.
Or we can put it in a committee bill.
Committee bill or something. Because we just spent half an hour on this language that in the scheme of life to me is not as important.
So next year, we won't have the tail. We won't have previous dollars that have been expended, where they're from, or what part of the project they're in.
I mean,
We won't have that.
I would like to have it, but I mean, if we can't figure out, it shouldn't be, in my opinion, I don't want to get out there. It shouldn't be so hard to figure out where this needs to go. If we agree with this language, let's just figure out where the heck it's supposed to be in this bill and move on, because we've had a debate about all different kinds of things in this piece of here. When I think we all agree on the language, whether it's John or somebody else, figure out where this goes, put it there. Let's go.
Do people like the language?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a place it can go? That works.
this was the logical place to me, which is why I chose it, but I take because this section is describing the capital budget. I guess I still have the same question I asked before. What is this section if not, and I may just be unfamiliar with the way that this is presented, but this is the request to present the annual capital budget request in the context of a 10-year plan.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming this is the thing that dictates the information that's received in the capital budget request.
What you read to us was to the General Assembly, so that's what confuses me.
So when we used to present the capital bill plan in the 10-year, it was in a spreadsheet. It was not in the written document.
Mhm.
And again, I'm only reacting or responding. I understand the chair wants a table.
Yep.
So we collect the information, it's in the spreadsheet, it is there, we can collect this.
Mhm.
I think in most, we can have departments report what their current spending is.
Yeah.
But that it's the form in which we collect it, not necessarily
To have it in the bill.
presented.
Right.
So part of what I
This
take,
is talking about the form in which you collect it. Right?
what B says is the capital budget request shall be presented as the next increment of the 10-year plan, and elements would include. I guess what I would say, I take the point here to be, we've never specified whether that thing be presented as a spreadsheet that has the items or if it's a narrative document that contains charts. So I take the point to be, that's just not a dictated thing. It's just how practice has been. This section informs the information that is provided for that, but doesn't dictate that
How it's
it be
presented.
narrative. And so what this would do is say, however you present this as part of your plan, you got to have a 5-year look back that identifies funding type and present it in a format that concisely displays. So it would be natural for that to result in the presentation being that.
So we left the language where it is now. Is that problematic in terms of when the departments and agencies are submitting their capital requests to the fifth floor in the
I
fall.
can't speak on that. I think the agency.
Well, are you able to?
Yeah,
weigh
well,
in?
I
Can
can do
you
my best.
identify yourself?
Yes, Will Anderson from Finance and Management. I think assuming that this section also falls under the third Tuesday, that it's feasible. And the only point that I would make on this is that I think, Madam Chair, very clear to us in the administration that you want the scope of this table system to cover the entire capital bill. And it's also very feasible for us to do that in a vast majority of cases, but that I probably can't endorse. If the administration probably wouldn't want it to be any more prescriptive than this, certainly any more prescriptive than this. As for the placement, I think that, to your point, legislative council, that is the most appropriate place if there is one.
Yeah.
You could create a separate obligation for agency administration, but this is like an intuitive,
Right.
or at least the most intuitive.
So I know the members in the committee want to have more of a grasp on the flow of money and where we are. So if we let this language in where it is, this bill's got a long ways to go still.
Mhm.
And we will have time maybe to do a little bit more work on it when we get it out of here. It's gonna go to the Senate. We can work with our counterparts over there to maybe fine tune it or figure out a little, maybe better place
Mhm.
and continue the conversation. But at least put it in now, knowing that we're gonna need more work.
Yep.
Does that make sense to folks? Because I think that folks in the committee really want to see
do.
that flow.
We do.
of dollars.
Absolutely.
That's why I asked for it. That's why I did.
You gotta be somewhere, you gotta be somewhere, John, at 3, right?
And Madam Chair, I just want to say, I did some quick research and I think I did it while, John was working with you. And we are comfortable with leaving section 3 and DOC on the way that you currently have it. And I reached out to my team and it's a partnership. So that's one less thing you have to do.
That's great. And I was gonna say, I actually looked back through capital bills through 2009 and never saw an independent
Yeah, neither
DOC
did
section.
I,
Yeah,
and it's so interesting because we may have presented it that way and it could have ended up in the
yeah.
way it did. I went back that far too.
Yeah.
So,
As soon as it
thank you.
changed format, yeah.
Can we quickly go through the transfer of land?
Sure. And just to be clear on my timing, I should just get out of here by 3:20. Obviously, the sooner I can get out, the better.
Yeah.
I would like to.
So it's
Small
small
break.
break. It's done.
Yeah. you need
Yes,
to-
in theory, the point I was trying to make is I won't be able to get edits in to editing before I go to appropriations, which had been my hope.
And you don't know, I'm just trying to figure out the schedule. So you don't know how long you're gonna be in approach.
I'm blocked for 30 minutes. It could be quick. It could be, I mean, I just don't know. Yeah.
We can stay. Well, keep us posted, John. Keep us, because you're gonna have to do a new draft and then it's gonna have to get edited. And
Exactly. I was just trying to be sensitive to Friday night.
By 4.
Gonna get done by 4.
Yeah, it won't
Right now.
happen by,
It's not getting done at that. It will get done by, if you only have half an hour, it's gonna take some time. Let's go Randall Meadow property.
oh, okay, sure. So transfer of Randall Meadow property, this language is quite close to what BGS has provided. I did run this language by Wanda and Cole, and I think there was agreement that this works. I can walk through what the language.
Did you run it by Waterbury?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
You're all, together. Okay.
Excellent.
So I think we've talked about the concepts here, but you notwithstand the section that specifically requires fair market value FMV and a bidding or real estate process. Authorized to survey, subdivide and transfer. The one silly thing I would note here is I don't think you have to authorize BGS to survey. They have that authority, but you guys are just making clear what is going on. So BGS is authorized to survey, subdivide and transfer to the town of Waterbury. We have the parcel ID referencing the particular property commonly referred to as Randall Meadow, provided that the commissioner may transfer. Obviously, they can survey and subdivide for this, but may transfer the property only once has been subdivided to reflect stormwater management needs of the complex to the satisfaction of the commissioner. Permits required for transfer have been obtained, and commissioner and the town of Waterbury have created a plan to align the transfer with the current needs for the parcel.
Next.
Next, I see that I need to indent, yeah, I need to make a formatting change here, but, this is, just an update to the capital complex flood recovery. We talked about this special committee and we wanted, I think it was Rep. Casey's recommendation that, notification be provided to the Montpelier Flood Commission, which is, I think, the Commission for Recovery and Resilience, and the language that I've included here is tied to a subsection that's not shown here, but alterations to proposals and plans for that flood recovery.
Has BTS seen this?
No, this is the first time seeing it. I will let the committee know I have met with this group, several times. And I will, we are in conversations and also a couple of individuals, sit on the governor's update. I will share plans as appropriate. I will make this clear for that if I have not presented anything to the governor or to FEMA, I cannot present it to this group for discussion. And I have to be very clear about that.
So do you want language added to cover you?
I don't need language, but I'm telling you that I will not be doing so. You know, I think we can provide updates to the commission of we could say approved alterations or proposals to the plans. If the representative is, I'm concerned the commission's large and I enjoy working with them. I don't want them to have an expectation of receiving information before we have vetted or approved information.
So sometimes if you get ahead of FEMA, you're gonna lose it.
Oh, yeah.
No, and
Well, I
that,
also
yeah.
have the governor.
And that's totally understood on my end. And I think the only thing I would ask is if we could add the city of Montpelier. I know it's happening anyways, but just to have both those entities since they're separate entities there. But I think, Commissioner, you've been working great with the City and Flood Commission.
Thank
So
you.
I always write language for the next commissioner who I don't trust a bit, but as long as it's you.
So long it gets, so can we add this when it gets passed?
So what
You
is
wanna
getting-
add City of Montpelier. Talk to this Montpelier Commission.
Maybe we could say it's deemed appropriate.
I'm not sure approved.
I know that's,
So can you tell us what you're thinking?
Well, there was a thought of putting of approved alterations to proposals, but I don't know if we want to do that.
no, I
It
just,
wouldn't be
I
approved.
will be happy to meet. I just do not, this is a large group of people. I understand at a local level, what they are trying to resolve and work through, and they've got a lot on their plate, just like everyone else. I just want to make sure that their expectations are not set differently than what I can do. I mean, I have told them, as things evolve, I will share and I will have conversations. And we've had some great discussions just around downtown Montpelier's vision of redevelopment. So I can meet with them and call those meetings and we can have those conversations. I just don't want them. I always get sensitive after you leave, right, when the legislature leaves. I don't want them to have an expectation that I can't deliver, because that doesn't help in the open process.
And
To the extent it's legislative intent, I'm not even thinking meeting necessarily, Commissioner. Notification could be an email that, this is what's happening, John Copans or Bill Frazier,
well, I mean, but her point is that it's not coming until the governor and FEMA have seen it.
and that's fine. Yeah.
Meeting portal, I mean, I'll be able to, I think, maybe it's giving them updates. And shall provide.
Timely notification. Yeah, I didn't include something to say that quarterly you have to do something.
Okay, all right. So timely notifications of alterations to proposals and plans. I'm fine. We can work with this. Let's.
I think we're simpatico. Yeah, if we add the city of Montpelier.
You want to add City of Montpelier to this?
Yeah.
Timely notification to the City of Montpelier and the Montpelier Commission. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
We used to have letters of intent.
Yeah, we
And it was at BGS, we sent these notebooks of the history of every line. I love those.
Yeah, we did that where we, that's where we hid some stuff, Wanda.
Sorry. That was a little sidebar.
John has limited time. I don't.
Oh, good.
27, we delete.
Exactly. So section 26, we've talked about before, feasibility report on that we're no longer pursuing that. Section 27 is deleted because that's the three Bs.
Three Bs.
Section 28, I think talked about before, it's not highlighted, so Veterans Home. This is that offset of capital funds with federal funds, to ensure that that's clawed back. Capital process. Yep. The last section that you see here, the Sergeant at Arms section, this is talking about the X-ray machine, and you guys had talked about how that was going through the budget adjustment process, but given potential veto, wanted to include here. So that matches that with the style that we use for the capital.
Right, yeah, that's what's in the appropriations bill, I don't documents and in the January.
Okay.
So John, we gotta figure out what we're gonna do. If you could keep Phil posted in terms of your time frame, because we've got changes that have been made. You have to do that, and then it has to go through editing. How long do you think it would take it editing? Half an
I
hour?
don't think it's gonna take long for editing. It'll be less than half an hour for them to edit it, I would guess, unless there's a huge influx of amendment requests, but my guess is my colleagues are having a calmer time than I am, based on what I know of things. So I'm expecting editing will be relatively quick, but I do have to make the changes, and I won't be able to do them until after I get out of.
So if you could keep us posted when you have the time to, when you're starting to make the changes here, what you're seeing for time frame, because we need to decide what we're doing here.
You have a spot for the notwithstanding language.
Oh, yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes, there is something we didn't talk about here that is a over page long addition.
Well, we're gonna lose some members.
We were including reallocation language, the notwithstanding for reallocations that aren't happening. Representative Hedrick and I have put together language and let me screen share real quick.
Yeah. It's gonna be all right.
Sorry, could you let me in the Zoom, please? No, you're okay. And I'll need screen sharing privileges if it doesn't auto.
Yep.
So when we finish with this with John, I want to take a quick break and I want to come back and confirm with Scott the amount of money. So we can let the probes know definitely, because they need to know that, because they need to get the bill out. They're gonna be here tonight.
They're looking for the language about the appropriation.
They're looking for the language.
Well, John and I talked about earlier about
Do
that.
you have that?
It'll be fine. Yeah, we'll be fine.
We just need to confirm it with the spreadsheet that we agree, and then they can do the language. Got it. Okay, notwithstanding.
Yeah,
Troy, this is yours.
So, concept is simple. The basic thing here is that you guys earlier in the session had observed the 5-year clawback requirement, basically. So there are some outstanding appropriations that were unexpended, hadn't been reallocated. And so this notwithstanding language is saying there are projects for which the money is still unexpended and out there. And so what these sections do is they notwithstand and they specify the particular department or agency, and then you see those outstanding items. So BGS, you have 3 projects. Ag, you have just the one. DEC, you have 3 projects, and then AOT has 2 projects listed. And I can.
And
Part
then
of the repro.
we don't have to include in here the money we are clawing back. This
Yeah, I don't
is
think we
just-
need to say that. And actually, if I can.
This is the 5-year that you didn't claw back.
Exactly, right. Let them keep. So the way that this works and why we wouldn't need to specify what is actually reallocated and why we don't need to use dollar figures is the lead-in. Department of Buildings and General Services may retain for the same purposes, so it's going to each of the parentheticals. They retain for the same purposes the unexpended amounts, so that's what kicks you into that bucket in the first place that you need to notwithstand for. They retain for the same purposes the unexpended amounts not reallocated in this act. So then you don't need to get into like.
And we did
calculating
reallocate some, but
Exactly,
that's
exactly.
specified in the cash, in the
Exactly.
reallocation section.
And these would be included in the reallocation section. They would be the last sections, and I might change the heading just, actually, I don't know that you have to change the heading, but I'll think about it. These would just go at the end. And this is reflective of the list that I received, to the extent that if you're able to, if you guys are able to look through and confirm those, just given time.
I
would be
think
awesome.
we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the concept. And I will just say, if I'm able to leave the room now, it is possible I can try to get these things in ASAP.
Yes, please.
Once you do that, John, and I'm gonna look to Troy to make sure that those notwithstandings are accurate
I've looked at them because he emailed them to me this morning.
and they look all right.
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a 10-minute break, get out of this